what you've created, which are some business and leadership hacks that people could use to solve their problems.
The best tools that I've found within books, within podcasts, within YouTube videos, compiled within the toolkit. When you're a manager, you just don't have time to be reading lots and lots of books.
How do you suggest that leaders actually use that deck?
It's specifically designed for managers to use by themselves, to take a step back.
Is it possible for us to test the deck or role play something to see how it works?
One of the tools that I propose is the dealing with underperformance. You as a manager beforehand need to reflect and ask yourself these questions. First of all, to diagnose why they're underperforming. You quickly move to the other card, which is is it an ability or is it a skill issue?
How did you decide what questions were worthy to be part of the deck?
Whether that tool or that question would have been useful for me when I'm leading a team. They are, in fact, cards. So you're forced to condense the content to the minimal that it can possibly be.
Dónal, thank you for coming into the show. It's a pleasure for me to finally meet you and have a chance to know you and your products.
Thank you, Jeff, and thank you for the invite. I really appreciate being here today.
No problem. So for the ones that don't know you yet, you present yourself as being the founder and the creator of Leaders Toolkit. And you present yourself as well as being in a mission to empower individuals with cutting-edge leadership coaching solutions and fostering growth and resilience within diverse teams. So your background is something that interests me and how that reflects into what you've created, which are some tools that I believe that you have around you there, some tools, some decks, some business and leadership decks that people could use to solve their problems.
Indeed, yeah. So I have a kind of an unorthodox path, a career path. So I trained as a pharmacist originally back in Ireland. So I thought I'd be working behind a counter dispensing medicines, and I took a couple of segues along the way. But the most recent one, I spent the last 8.5 years working at 𝘱𝘆 Systems, which is an IT company, where I first of all started selling IT solutions, but kind of quickly moved into the management area within the company. So I led a team and grew a team to 65 plus people. So it involved a lot of management and obviously having, say, two managers underneath me, but also a lot of hiring. So I spent a lot of time in interviews and growing that team during that kind of COVID kind of IT hiring kind of boom time, let's say. So I left 𝘱𝘆 a year ago, and alongside my journey at 𝘱𝘆, I was also toying around with some solutions that I built myself. So I built the Leaders Toolkit based on, say, my experience working with teams and also managing large groups and coaching managers.
So you've built everything yourself, what we are going to see today.
Indeed, yeah. So there's, for example, the first product that I released was the Leaders Toolkit. It's 54 cards, and I would have authored and developed those tools myself. So not all the tools within the toolkit are innovations or brand new, but what I've done is I've picked the best toolkits or the best tools that I've found within books, within podcasts, within YouTube videos, whatever they may be, and I've compiled them within the toolkit. And then, made them just super practical tools to use.
So basically, if someone is looking for some resource that would allow you to have access to the best practices based on multiple sources, these decks that you built and you will show today, you've done the homework to compile that, in your opinion, the best practices. Okay.
Absolutely. So there's a lot of value to be gotten from books or courses, but the issue that I found with a lot of them is that books are amazing, right? There's so much value in them, but when you're a manager, you just don't have time to be reading lots and lots of books.
Right.
How many books do you have? I'm not sure. Maybe you've got a lot of books in the background there.
Yeah, if you ask me how many have you read, let's not go there.
Well, maybe you finished. I think that's probably the main thing, right? How many of you finished? And what I did is I took the best tools from some of the best books and then concisely condensed them into cards. And that's where the kind of innovation happened with Leader Tools.
Was there a specific leadership problem that you faced in your life that facing that you thought, okay, now this needs a different tool to be addressed?
And kind of the origin story was I actually bought a similar product, and it was promised to be the kind of the best in class set of leadership tools within a card deck. And what kind of triggered me was because I was kind of disappointed with the product. I needed to scratch my own itch, right, to build something that would be useful. And that's why it took a lot of time to actually build the toolkit out, because the amount of time it takes to really to make something valuable and condensed, and then that's useful and can be used, did take a lot of time.
So if we look at the Leaders Toolkit, the first that you created, how do you suggest that leaders actually use that deck? It's like they play solo with themselves within the teams during a meeting. It's something to be used on team buildings in retreats.
Tools are for managers themselves. So it's specifically designed for managers to use by themselves, to take a step back, to reflect on their team, to reflect on the people they have, and to do their homework, basically. It would be useful if, say, a manager or someone in HR bought it for the managers, for them to run through some of the exercises themselves personally, and then for them to reflect, come together as a group, discuss how they've implemented those tools. That's one way. There's only a handful of the tools within the toolkit that you should be team-facing within your actual team.
So I was smiling a little bit because I was imagining the situation, you being a leader or a manager, and then someone from your team gives you for a birthday this deck. Would that be a good or a bad thing if you receive this?
It shows that they care, but maybe they're hinting at something that you should improve. But yeah, I know that's when you're always thinking of who's your customer, right, for these toolkits.
Or there must be a sales pitch there for someone that has already is a reference when it comes to team management and leadership, and through the deck to be able to expand that to others. But it's for you to think about how to create that sales pitch. But when you start seeing people using the decks, what surprised you the most?
I've sold over 3,000 of these decks so far, and I built the product for myself, and I obviously tested it with a number of managers as well, kind of in my close-knit community. But I was most surprised was the kind of how much people liked it. I think that was probably the biggest surprise for me. The return rate of the product is very minimal. I think I've got like 5 or 6 returns of the product within 3,000 sales. So I think that's pretty low as far as I can tell. That was the most surprising, and I think what was the most rewarding for me was that I'm genuinely making an impact for managers that are in the field, that they're able to, not lose sleep over decisions that they're making, or kind of not be spending time reading and doing courses and stuff like that, whereby they can get that time back for their personal life. Because certainly when I was managing a team for the first time, I was certainly stressing. I was doing a lot of long hours. I was trying to do right by the team, do right by the individuals within that team. And that's the reason why I built the toolkit as well. It's like to have frameworks that are just easy to think through, that you can step back. What surprised me the most was just the feedback. So far has been really good.
If the deck had one core belief about leadership, what would it be?
I kind of grew up in an organization where servant leadership was a big part. So I'm not sure, Joao, you know the concept of servant leadership?
No.
So servant leadership is whereby you kind of create the environment. You're there to serve your people as a leader. You're there to be like barrier remover for them to do their best work. You're meant to kind of get things out of the way. You're meant to serve your team. What it doesn't mean is you're not there to please your team. On the other hand, you're not there to kind of make them happy all of the time, but you're there to serve the best interests that you think for them and their career growth, and also the best interests of the team overall.
So that's the core belief behind the deck.
It's one of the core beliefs, the theory behind so I do have a small section at the back of the cards where I cover some of the theories behind the cards. There's about 7 cards. I talk about servant leadership. I talk about a team first attitude, whereby you really want people on your team that are thinking about the team over their personal ambitions and goals. Of course, people have personal ambitions and goals, and that's really important, but they should not have that overriding them functioning well within a team.
So I think this could be a good moment for me to ask you then, is it possible for us to test a deck or role play something to see how it works?
We can give it a shot, right? I'm not very good at role plays, but I didn't do so well as acting in school, but we can definitely give it a shot.
Let's go.
One of the tools that I propose is the dealing with underperformance. And as I mentioned, I do take a lot of this inspiration from other people. So this is one from Daniel Meyer. He's the owner of Shake Shop. It's a restaurant in the restaurant chain in the US. And he's a really, really good concept around dealing with people and how you can improve their performance.
For people to create their own mental image on what's happening here. So imagine that I could be the underperformer and you would be my manager. So how does this happen? You ask me to go to your office and then the conversation starts with the cards, or?
Well, actually, it's more that you as a manager beforehand need to reflect and ask yourself these questions. First of all, to diagnose why they're underperforming.
Okay.
How they're underperforming, why they're underperforming, and then how we can solve it. Either, for example, coach better performance, or, for example, find another team for them, or find another solution. So how the card works, so you've gotten basically a blueprint there, or a formula to work through in order to deal with underperformance. So basically, what way are they underperforming? You need to reflect on that. Is it that they're missing their KPIs? Perhaps they're burning out. Maybe they need some help. Maybe you're giving them too much work and that's why they're underperforming. There could, of course, then be more serious issues like a values and culture clash, or perhaps they fall into the toxic teammates category. And all of these icons that you see on the screen are linked to other cards. So that's why I mentioned that it's super practical, because if you ever want to dive deeper into a topic, you can just select a different card. You don't need to go scroll through a book or perhaps forget some of the information that you need.
It looks like, you know, those books like the Do Your Own Adventure, where you select the path, right?
Exactly. And that's how I built the whole toolkit. It's kind of gamification of management, let's say. And then you need to decide, and I think you quickly move to the other card, which is is it an ability or is it a skill issue that they have? So this is a very important kind of matrix to have to think about. Is there an ability? Is there a lacking of ability, and that's why they're underperforming? Or is it because they're just not willing to do the work? And you'll see, for example, if the ability and if they have high ability but low will, they can, but they won't do the work. If they, for example, have the ability and don't have the will, then they can, but they won't. They can and will. So they're really the people you need to nurture and develop. The people that can and will do the work. Then you have, for example, the people that can't do the work but will do the work, and they need to be coached and developed as people because they really want to get there. You just need to invest more time in order to develop them. And I guess the category that you probably need to deal with the most is the can't and won't. So there's people that perhaps can't do the job, they won't want to improve, and they have a kind of a short period of time in your team. You don't, for example, keep them for very long.
Right.
And as I mentioned, it's very diagnostic, and there's very much a pathway to use the toolkit in a very efficient way.
I confess I'm feeling it just from our conversation, which is I'm imagining that I have a problem. Then I take the corresponding card. The card asks me questions. Is it this, that? And when I find the one that speaks to me, I just follow that path. And then it opens the door for another way to diagnose the problem. So yes, because normally if I pick a book, I don't know where to start, right? Or if I go to Google, I will just ask a question or find a video, and probably I will have lots of context and things that don't interest me. But the way you're describing is that you just follow the trail of your problem.
Exactly. Yeah. And then also I back up everything. For example, if the diagnosis is this, we need to give this person more time, then I have a coaching and a feedback card based on that. So, okay, use the coaching card. This is a coaching framework that you can use. These are the milestones that you can set for the person, or this is how you give feedback to the person. So you should frame it in such a way, not to kind of go in with a sledgehammer. You somehow need to frame it and give them an ability to reflect on the feedback themselves. So it's really, really a concise toolkit. It's got it's got like most of the key management issues that I certainly encountered when I was leading teams.
Interesting. So there are lots of leadership myths. Does your deck quietly challenge any myth or dismantle them?
The key management myth that I think exists is that managers are born and not made. I think often there's always a debate that goes around, and I'm a firm believer that if you've got good EQ and you've got a will to learn, I think anybody can become a manager if they really wanted to, based on the right training, the right framings, but emotional intelligence is at its core. Another myth, I just think it's really important that people put the people first in terms of if you genuinely care for your team, they will trust you. They will trust that you have their best interests at heart. They will then follow you because they know that you're leading them in a direction that's also beneficial to them. But if you're, for example, the type of leader who's a bit guarded, who's very, very short with them, doesn't necessarily encourage them, doesn't necessarily give them goals to work towards, I think you're going to struggle as a manager.
How long did it take to build the tool that you showed us?
So it started off as me just jotting things down, documenting, say, my own experience in a Notion document, or almost like a Word doc. And then from there, I refined it into each of the cards, which did take, I must say, about 6 months of editing and back and forth, learning the whole print game. Actually, in fact, you believe it, I come from a software background. I didn't know much about printing cards and all of the nuances that happens, but I'm pretty well versed now.
How did you decide what questions were worthy to be part of the deck?
I used to always reflect on the fact that whether that tool or that question would have been useful for me when I'm leading a team. Like, is this useful? Like, you don't have time to be, again, dealing with silly questions that aren't useful. You need to be very, very succinct. And I think a forcing function is the fact that they are, in fact, cards. So you're forced to condense the content to the minimal that it can possibly be. So you're trying to communicate a tool to somebody in the minimum words possible. That was one of the biggest things for me. It was just making sure that I got as succinct as possible. And then just trying and testing them myself, in fact.
So based on what you're saying, this deck really, in a sense, represents your life as well, because it was your personal judgment that said, oh, this is good because this happened to me, and this is not good because I never faced this situation, so trash, right? Reflects that life you had.
Exactly.
What's the most powerful story that you've heard from someone using the deck?
It was regarding one of my first customers, in fact, that used the toolkit with their team. They were going in for their kind of performance review. They were in a group meeting with a group of managers, and when they were able to kind of leverage some of the tools that I had within the toolkit, it just made them stand out within their leadership community or leadership group. And just the kind of feedback that I got via one of my reviews from that customer was just outstanding, and obviously made me feel like I'd produced something that was very useful to people. But yeah, making people shine within organizations and within teams was really a great thing for me.
I guess that the deck doesn't work for everyone, unless you tell me otherwise. So there must be a specific kind of leader or leaders that tend to get the most value from it, and others that may resist this deck idea. Is this a reality that you faced?
It isn't for everyone. I think the sweet spot is really mid-career managers or earlier. If you're someone who's been managing people for 10 years, you've probably seen or come across these concepts. You have your own ways of working. You're not going to learn too much new. Certainly, if you're interested in people and you're interested in developing as a manager, you've probably come across some of these concepts. But if you're new and you're mid-career manager, I think you will benefit a lot from this toolkit.
If a leader only used this deck for 10 minutes per week, for example, what could realistically change, in your opinion?
There's plenty of things that could change. It's really a journey builder, as we mentioned, right? So you have the blueprint cards, which tackle various different problems. But one of the key ones, I think, there is delegating tasks. So a lot of managers like to think that they can hold on to a lot of work themselves without delegating to their teammates or their team. The delegation frameworks that I have in there are really good because you can sit back and think about the workload that you have as a manager and how much you can distribute to your team, when you can distribute it. This would really, really impact. I think that's probably one of the biggest impact tools, because the more you delegate, the more time you're going to have to think about your team and think about how you can improve things as a manager, rather than delivering the work yourself.
We just focus on the Leaders Toolkit deck. What could you say about the other two decks that you've shown?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, I spent my time hiring a lot, right? So unless you can hire great talent, you're not going to have a good team. You just will not. If you hire people that are not sufficiently capable, then you can be the best manager in the world, but you're not going to get the best out of the best team possible. So that's why I created the Hiring Leaders Toolkit, which again is like 52 tools. And it maps out the journey of thinking about what you need in the team, what you need in the future of your team, and then frameworks that you can use in order to hire people better. I focus a lot on cognitive behavioral or behavioral competence interviewing. So how you can link back, for example, the competence that you need in your team to the questions that you're going to ask and how you can rate them.
To use before the interview and during the interview?
It's before. So none of the tools you would use in the interview, they're not like questions or anything like that, but it's to reflect on the, first of all, what you need to learn behavioral competency interviewing, and then how to, for example, probe answers. So all of these things are things that you should study beforehand before you're actually in the interview yourself.
Right. And the other one?
So this is the last toolkit that I have, or it's called the Team Conversation Deck. And within this, I've got 160 questions that are meant to be a game that you have with your team as kind of with your team facing, so with the people within your team. And a lot of them are, for example, icebreakers. So I have 40 icebreakers where you kind of get to know each other better. It's something that you'd have in a session within your team, a question that you'd ask each other. I then go on to deeper questions, so even a little bit more personal, but obviously everything is work safe. None of them are really awkward questions that are going to get you into kind of awkward conversations. Super safe. They're very much not going to get people into sticky situations. And then the other one is, for example, I have two other categories which I think are most useful are the work. So our work preferences. So meetings that you could eliminate. What's your style of working as an individual? Having conversations around that. And the last category is teams, which is as a team, how can we perform better? What can we, where we can be investing our time? Where can we, for example, be saving time, like not having a particular meeting? All of these are various different questions that have been curated by myself for a game that you can play with your team.
Where can people find these products?
𝘬𝘠𝘪𝘐.co. So not the com.co, 𝘬𝘬tools.co.
I've left the links in the video description as well as a discount code. So if you want to take use of that, don't forget to use that code to buy it from the link below. Dónal, before we go, everyone that comes into this show, I like to ask for a recommendation, someone they would like to recommend to be the next guest of the show. Who would you like to recommend?
I would recommend Sean Kennedy, a recruitment specialist. He's quite famous on LinkedIn and also perhaps TikTok and Instagram at the moment for his funny sketches around HR.
Thank you for being here and for showing the products. And I've also become a fan of what you're trying to build there. And I hope that one day I can really use the cards facing real situations. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Thank you, John. Bye.